Pardon? What do you need? No. Use this for the
Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome, residents of Garden Village and guests. As I came in this morning, I recognized way too many faces, which means my proximity to being a resident is narrow. So Nigel and Wendy are here. I see Bart is there, the Rainies are here, and Jean is here, and there's a whole, I see you soon. We're here to celebrate and commemorate a tower of a human being, a thoroughly magnificent man of great accomplishment, enormous achievement, who's influenced and built and affected the lives of many, many people, all those whom he taught. But most of all today, his great heart is before us and within us. My name is Jeremy. So first of all, Antoinette, our love and condolences to you. To Alan and Mary, Alan firstborn, and their daughters Claire and Laura, Nikki and John, and then Laura and Tash. Neville's stepsister Libby, who's online in the UK, and the rest of the family and friends, our condolences and love to you as we celebrate Nev's life. Professor Welsh, or Prof, to some of us today. We are here today because a life has been lived. A real, authentic, unrepeatable, and unique life. And because that life has touched ours, we will honor that life with gratitude and with respect. We come not out of any sense of duty or obligation, but out of a sense of connection, friendship, family, shared stories, but most of all, out of love. In this space, we bring all that is in our hearts, our gratitude, our celebration, our happy memories, our laughter, but also today our sorrow and our tears. Nothing that we bring within us today is out of place. The ceremony is about Neville's life and our lives within his life, where our hearts have met and where they will stay together for all time. And so we gather to remember Neville, to acknowledge his death, to honor his life, to share our gratitude and our grief, to draw strength from one another as we continue our life journeys. Today is both a farewell and a thanksgiving, a moment to say goodbye and a moment to say thank you. And so we acknowledge our grief and give thanks. Grief is the price we pay for love. If we did not care deeply, we would not hurt deeply. So we do not apologize for sadness today. Sadness tells the truth, for the simple fact that somebody mattered so much to us. But alongside our grief stands another truth, that all of us here today are better because Neville lived. We are better for his presence, better for his character, better for his quirks, better for his sharp wit and humor, better for his kindness, better for his goodness. But above all, we are better because he loved us. So today we bless his memory with love and gratitude. I have before me a poem and an email that was sent by Libby. She's in England. I think she's online with us today. And I'm just going to read this out. Nev was a wonderful stepbrother to me over 68 years of my life. He was always loving, supportive, encouraging, and interested in my life, family, and career, with kind words and wisdom when needed. He came into my life as an 8-year-old girl, and together with his brother Robin, adopted me as their little sister, with love from the very start. The poem I've chosen is titled Death is a Door by Nancy Bird Turner. It was published in 1936, and it portrays death as a peaceful and natural transition rather than a fearful and unpleasant event. And it goes like this. Death is only an old door set in a garden wall. On quiet hinges it gives at dusk when the thrushes call. Along the lintel are green leaves, beyond light lies still. Very weary and willing feet go over that sill. There is nothing to trouble any heart, nothing to hurt at all. Death is only an old door in a garden wall. I love and owe you so much, Nev. May God go with you. Lovely tribute. Thank you to Libby. I'm going to invite Alan and Nikki up first, siblings. They're going to tag a tribute to us, and then David, Neville's nephew, will follow, and then we're going to listen to a piece of music, which I'll introduce a bit later. But let's have Nikki and Alan first.
Which way are you going on?
Yeah.
Okay. To everyone, thank you. To everyone for coming. To those not able to come, including family and friends joining us online, and friends in Garden Village. Thank you to Sainton Clinic, Garden Village management and staff, Collinger's Funerals, and Reverend Jeremy Jacobs. Also to John, Mary, and Tash for helping us organize everything. And finally, thanks to Nev for making it easier by being so practical and well organized.
Okay. Neville Hepburn Welsh, ophthalmologist, family man, avid lover and reader of books, student of history, trout fly tire and fly fisherman, player of cricket, golf and tennis, frustrated fan of rugby, enthusiastic bird watcher, and later in life, doer of crosswords, maker of jigsaw puzzles, and amateur geologist. Nev was married to Ant for over 70 years. She was his stalwart support, maintaining family and household while Nev built his career. Nev was multi-talented, but cooking, even braaiing, was not part of his skill set. Nev's life is also a tribute to Ant, because without her, none of it would have been possible. Nev had a good sense of humour, and we grew up with lots of in-house jokes. When Nikki was born, she needed a blood transfusion. She still believes Nev when he told us she was given monkey blood. Two big treats at home were Nev coming home from work at lunchtime every Saturday with hot chips wrapped in paper, and occasionally going to the drive-in in the sugarcane fields of Umhlanga Rocks, which seemed very far from Durban North in those days.
Nev and his brother Robin's dad, in other words, our grandfather, was a GP. He worked long hours and together with house visits was left with little time to be at home. He insisted that his sons specialize. This was one of the reasons for Nev becoming an ophthalmologist. We lived in Durban where Nev was in private practice with Harry Chait, who taught him the business of running a practice. This followed having done medicine at Wits, working at the General Hospital, Joburg, Jen and Hillbrow, and Baragwanath, training in the United Kingdom for 2.5 years, and then working at Elam Hospital in the Northern Province. In the late 1970s, corneas were being imported by the Lions Club for patients needing corneal transplants. If the corneas arrived on the weekend, we would have to go to the airport to pick them up, bring them home, and store them in the fridge overnight, a source of dark humor. We had ophthalmology registrars coming to the house weekly in the evening for extra teaching in basic sciences. Nev would also go to conferences where he would often give presentations. He would practice his presentation at home beforehand, a valuable lesson, and often there would be a family audience. Keep in mind, this was the era of slides and the carousels, which easily got stuck, and projecting onto a white sheet on the wall. We grew up learning about the anatomy of the eye, as well as the natural history and treatment of eye disease, particularly glaucoma, about which he was particularly interested. Alan has never forgotten Schlem's Canal. He can tell you about creating a flap, which he showed me yesterday, and putting in a pipe to keep it open. Alan would even know less about eyes than he does without these practice talks. Nev was fine with operating on and applying procedures to patients, but he had a strong dislike of undergoing them himself. The dentist was never a favorite visit, perhaps because of the relatively primitive dentistry when he was a boy. More amusingly, although he did it to thousands of patients, he disliked having his intraocular or eye pressure measured by tonometry, especially the contact methods that involve placing an instrument on front of the eye, the cornea. He had very good vision, which was fortunate, because in spite of having done hundreds of cataract operations successfully, he would never have undergone cataract surgery himself.
It was a standard family joke that with a birthday on December the 2nd, Nev had to write a matric exam on his birthday. But what subject was it? Over the years, he wavered between Afrikaans, maths, and Latin, none of which was his favorite subject. Nev worked very hard in 1969-70, preparing to write his second ophthalmology fellowship in London. He took books everywhere and never wasted a moment. This included studying in the car during Durban City under-10 soccer practice or watching Nikki play tennis. This set quite an example of self-discipline, commitment, and application. He taught us how to go about learning new material and preparing for an exam. This proved useful for both of us later, taking driver's license tests, and I took a rugby referee's test at one stage. When I threw in the towel trying to help Nikki with physics, Nev was extremely patient in answering her physiology questions. He was a great teacher, as some of you here can attest. He simplified and explained complicated and boring material. He believed strongly in thinking critically and not simply accepting at face value statements from authority, guiding us gently when he felt we were accepting something too readily. These were invaluable life lessons. Nev loved books, and that's why you've got a small bookmark for coming here today. He had a fantasy even of running a second-hand bookshop, which fortunately never happened. He was well read, but history was very alive to him and not just a dry academic discipline. He could read 4 or 5 books simultaneously, reading whichever one he was in the mood for on a particular day. He had no problem switching books, even within the same day. He loved to visit historic places and see where things happened, and he took us with him. His interests were eclectic, including both high history and personal history. For example, showing us around St. John's College, he included the door in which he broke his little finger while trying to escape from fellow pupil Arsenic Annika, an incident his finger carried all his life. Nev had an incredible memory, especially for names and nicknames. The historical sites Nev was interested in included battlefields. He was always very well prepared, including with battle maps, always able to tell us the background and the story of the battle as we drove there. Then we walked the battlefield. All of it. While he explained the events and speculated on alternative possibilities. 2 of his favorites were Isandlwana and Spiernkop. One year we made a family trip to Kimberley in the heat of January. We visited Machersfontein, Modder River, and Paardeberg. It was so hot that we fully appreciated the conditions facing the combatants, which were not funny, I should say. A particular memory was eating sponspec or cantaloupe melon next to the tiniest thorn bush, the nearest to, but still a very long way from shade in the area. We were flattened. Nev was full of energy. Nev was also passionate about both world wars, partly because his father volunteered and served in both, we think. Nev's father joining up in the Second World War led to him and his brother Robin being sent from Waterkloof House Preparatory School in Pretoria to boarding school at St. John's, Johannesburg, initially as a primary school pupil. Nev took us on an overseas trip to the northern part of the Western Front, Belgium and northern France, to visit the battlefields. When we lived in Southampton, we took Nev to visit the D-Day battlefields. He was very well aware of the horrors of war. Early in his career, 40 years after they had been gassed in the First World War, he was still treating veterans who had suffered permanent eye damage.
Nev grew up with a very conservative diet and famously struggled with Anne's parents' Swiss food, which he found very strange. He also struggled with their frequent dropping back into French, but he tried valiantly, even going to the Alliance Française to improve his French. One evening, After eating a second helping of sauerkraut, Ant's mum said to Ant in French, "You must never marry that man. He does not like our cooking." Over 70 years of marriage has rather reduced the relevance of my grandmother's judgment. Eating salad with dinner every day was an alien concept. He drowned everything in gravy, including his salad. Even macaroni cheese was not spared gravy. Homemade gravy in the fridge was as basic as milk. When it came to dessert, nothing was palatable without cream or custard. He disliked cheese other than processed Melrose, and an anathema to any Swiss-French family. Salami, olives, and gherkins were completely unpalatable to him. When it came to grapes, he mastered the art of deconstruction, separating the skins and pips while chewing, so that he only ate the flesh. He loved granadillas, but disliked guavas because of the pips. I mean, make sense of that one. A funny illustration of his food conservatism was his utter horror in a bed and breakfast in Normandy when visiting the D-Day battlefields, at being served coffee in a bowl with some bread placed directly on the placemat. There was no plate and no possibility of cereal. No man, he said. He could not believe it. Alan bought him a souvenir coffee bowl with Neville inscribed on it, and he ate his cereal out of that every day. As mentioned, his favorite dishes included cream. Cream on bread, mashed bananas and cream. For years he ate Black Cat smooth, only smooth, peanut butter sandwiches for lunch, before switching to Peck's fish paste sandwiches. When he had his gallbladder removed, it was surely just a ball of peanut butter.
We used to go on some Sundays up to Kloof to watch Nev play cricket for the Kloof Crickets Club. He was a good cricketer. We used to go more often to Morningside Tennis Club to watch Nev and Ant play tennis. Ant was better than Nev. When Nev played with his father, I enjoyed accompanying them on a golf round, especially when the ball went into the bunker, because that seemed much more fun to watch than the other golf shots. We were exposed to any sport that involved a ball. We were even taken to baseball matches in Durban. Nev also once or twice paddled with me in a double kayak. On one particular occasion on the Umgeni River, the kayak overturned. Nev always recounted to the family that after we'd both surfaced, all I could say to him was, "My God, you've got such blue eyes." Watching Nev and Ant play sport was repaid to us with interest when we went to school, and they came to watch and support our sport. We greatly appreciated the regular visits at boarding school, as these included essential food parcels prepared by Ant that kept us going. We benefited enormously from the huge parental support that went well beyond sport. Thank you to both of you. Finally, Nev was a keen fly fisherman, and he and Ant made many fishing trips. He also tied his own trout flies and took great pleasure in catching a trout on his own fly. A good memory is watching him fish on a bank with the fly deep in the water right beneath him, waiting patiently, and then delicately catching and landing a trout. He taught us all to fish. Be patient. Strike gently so you don't haul the fly out of the fish's mouth. Keep the rod tip up, etc. Ant in particular was a star who regularly outfished him. He taught us to be aware of our surroundings. Increasing leaves and detritus in the river are signs of impending flood. So when you see them, get back on the right side of the river before you get stuck.
So, Neville Nev, Nevi, Precious, Professor, Prof, Doctor, Grandpa, G-Pa, Gramps, Grampini, Dad, you were a legend.
Thank you. Thanks.
That certainly deserves applause. It has to be one of the absolute best tributes I've ever heard in my entire life. Well done, thank you. One of my favorites when I was at school was the Glenn Miller Band. Many of you will know and remember that, and there's a special meaning to this today. 1942, I've got a gal in Kalamazoo. Do you want to tell the story, Nikki? Alan, do you want, just give us a quick on why we're listening to I've Got a Gal in Kalamazoo.
Sure.
Yeah.
So thank you, Jeremy. In 1976, when television was new, we were sitting in front of it watching a quiz program. And the question was, which song begins with the first 8 letters of the alphabet? We all looked confusedly at each other, except for Nev, who burst out singing A, B, C, D, E, etc. I've got a girl in Kalamazoo. So this is for Nev.
Look at the photo.
Good morning, everybody, and it's really a great honour to be asked to speak today on behalf of my uncle Neville. He was my dad's. My dad was his older brother by 2.5 years, and I'm the youngest nephew, I think. Am I right? Yeah. Well, on that side of the family, at least. Yeah, on my dad's side. So, yeah, it's great to be with you. I'm very grateful for that song to give me a bit of time to recompose myself after Alan and Nikki. I'm not sure why they draw the straw that they could do the speech together when I've got to do it all on my own. But I suppose that's close family privilege. But watch out, guys, watch out for the future. No, it really is a pleasure to be here. And if I go back to my first memories of the Welsh family in Durban, I was about 5 years old, I think, when we did our first big trip down from Pretoria to visit them. And we were really, really excited by this because we were going to see the sea for the first time. And that was a fantastic idea. And round about Escort, I started feeling terrible, and I really was sick. And I remember this very clearly. And we stopped probably at Ladysmith, and my dad lifted my shirt, and I had spots all over my tummy and was full of German measles. So my first remembrance of meeting you and Nev in Durban was when Dad said, right, we've arrived and you will all stay in the car and I must first go and check with Ant whether she's pregnant or not. And, well, the fact that it's only Alan and Nikki up here tells you she wasn't, and so we actually had a very happy holiday, thank God. I don't know what would have happened if she was. She would have gone home, I think. Judy, my sister, reminded me at the time that we were so excited to see the sea and swim in the sea, but all we did the whole week of our holiday was play cricket in the garden. And we discovered that Alan and Nikki didn't really like the sea, and we thought, what a waste to live in Durban and not go to the sea the whole time. It just makes no sense at all. Of course, James and I were very happy to play cricket all day. As we've heard, Nev was actually a very good sportsman, and he really supported us as nephews with our sport. James and I were cricketers mainly. And he took such a great interest in all our sport, always phoning up to find out how it was going and so on. And I never really understood why he was so interested in our sport. I know my dad was a fanatical follower of sport and played sport himself until I read his memoirs. And he wrote this amazing book called The Fortunate Life, which was all about his life. And in that, he described his cricketing days, which we'd never heard of. He'd never spoke about them. And he was actually a darn good cricketer, which we never realized, James. We never realized this. But he played first league for Old Johnnies in Joburg. And in those days, you played against the top players in league. You didn't have to play provincial or international cricket to play against some of the best players in your country, because they played on weekends. There wasn't that much international sport. And if you were a batsman, you played against the opening bowler of the Springboks and had to survive. And Nev did that incredibly well. In fact, I think at one point he was even asked to represent Transvaal in a pickup game. And very sadly, I think a week before that, in the previous game, he broke his hand and couldn't play. But he was that good. So that explains why he was so interested in sport, amongst many, many other things. Reading those memoirs of A Fortunate Life, which is what he called them, what stood out for me as part of the family from a different side was this amazing thing that he and my father shared a room. I'm not talking about a digs. They shared a room when they were at Wits studying medicine. They had one bed. I'm not sure if they each had a desk or they shared a desk. I think they might each have had a small desk in one room. And this wasn't for 6 months or a year. This was for 3 years. Okay, they had this for 3 years. So Nev was year 1 to 3 doing medicine, and my dad was year 3 to 6 doing medicine. And Nev says they never had a single argument in the 3 years together. Can you imagine that, James? Not a single argument in the same room. James lasted till I was 8 years old in the same room with me before he left into Stella's spare room. Yeah. But I just found that quite an amazing thing. And the other amazing thing is that after my dad went to specialise in the UK, Nev stayed on in that room for another 3 years. So he spent 6 years studying in that room. That room must have known surgery, it must have known medicine very, very well at the end. The amazing thing is it had no kitchen. And so they used to go round the corner to a little eatery for their meals. And it must have been a very cheap place to do their meals, but they had nowhere to eat. I can't imagine what those meals were like, and I was just thinking that probably cost Nev his gallbladder later on in life. Maybe more so than the peanut butter sandwiches. Nev and I had, amongst many things in common, but I suppose golf was our biggest love. And for a time, when Nev and Ant came back to Joburg from Durban in 1984, which seemed much more recent than that, but it was 1984. A few years later, Grace and I came to Joburg, and it turned out Nev and I both were members of Royal Joburg Golf Course. And so we played quite often together for a while, which was really special. But one day, we were walking down the fairway. I was having a normal nightmare on the golf course, couldn't hit the ball straight and was struggling like hell. This is not an uncommon factor, so it's not newsworthy. But Nev said to me, "David, do you know what the secret of golf is?" And I thought, wow, that's just what I need to hear. You know, I'm lifting my head. Is it lifting my head, or am I swaying, or maybe my right elbow's sticking out, left arm's probably bent. Thank God he's going to tell me what the problem is. So I said, "Nev, please tell me what the secret of golf is." So he said to me, "David, the secret of golf is never tell your wife how much it costs to play golf." So I still struggle on with my golf. My wife's threatening to play golf, and I've got no Nev to ask, what do I do when she discovers what it costs to play golf? Nev, as we've heard today, and I'm sure there are many people listening to this who've shared his incredible career in ophthalmology as a professor, well, in private practice, as we heard, and as a professor at the Natal University, and then, of course, asked to come and be the professor at Wits, which was a great honor, and that's what brought him to Joburg in 1984. And we never followed this. We just accepted parents who were just good at their careers and did their thing. But then James, my brother, reminded me this week, I spoke to him earlier, and he said he had some eye trouble recently, and he went to see a doctor, a couple of them, ophthalmologists. And one of them, he saw his surname when he was consulting with him about his problem, and said to him, "I see your name's Welsh. You know, you're not related to Neville Welsh, are you?" And James said, "Yes, well, actually, he was my uncle." So that was fine. They had the consultation, and when they went out, James got the bill, and it was zero. And yeah, we all go, woo. And in this day and age, anyway, so James said, "There's a mistake here. I think your secretary's made a mistake. There's no charge on this bill. Can you just fix it?" And the guy said, oh no. Anybody who's a nephew of Neville, who taught me every single thing I know about ophthalmology, doesn't get charged by me." We've heard Nev had many hobbies. I was going to talk about his wartime escapades, and when I hadn't heard it in the first half of your talk, Nikki and John, I thought, sure, that must have made an impact on you walking through those Natal battlefields in the middle of summer. And Grace and I have been to Malchusfontein on the 16th of January, and we know exactly what that feels like. So that must have been, Nev was absolutely passionate about war stuff. I once asked him about the European war. I knew he followed the Boer War sites, but I once asked him about the battlefields in Europe, and he knew all of them. And he and Ant had been to so many of them, and he was just fascinated by that side of things. And of course, we've heard about his sport, and of course, trout fishing. And trout fishing, Nev and Ant's big love. And we had this farm, Evening Rise, where it goes back a long time, and they learned to fish there. And anyway, when they came to Joburg, we started having more holidays with them together at the farm, which was really special. We had a few Christmases together. And the one time, we had breakfast, and Nev and Ant left at about 11:30 for the river. It was on the Crocodile River, nice trout stream. And they never came back for lunch, and they pitched back at about 4:15, 4:45. And they were absolutely exhausted. They were sopping wet from head to toe. They'd been wading through the river from the bottom to the top, and had a wonderful day. And this was such a revelation for us. We used to pop down to the river for an hour at the most, flip a few things, hopefully we don't get our feet wet, and then go back for a beer and a drink. It was a complete revelation. I don't have to tell you who caught all the fish that weekend. Yeah. Anyway, I know that both Nev and Ant, but we're so proud of you, Alan. I remember very clearly when your trick results came out. Yeah, I need some help. Yeah, and all your academic achievements. They followed that, and Nev was so proud of that. And Nikki, you too, following in his footsteps. I think that was such a thrill for him. So, yeah. Anyway, lastly, not quite lastly, I know that also they had a massive part to play, you, Ant and Nev, in bringing up your grandchildren. I know John and Nikki were so busy working, very busy working, and you guys played such a major role in Laura and Tasha's upbringing, and so that's wonderful. And same to Claire and Laura in Australia when they did trips to you. I know how much they loved that, and really meant a lot. Yeah, lastly, I just want to also mention that from our side, and this is where it's probably going to get worse.
You're a star.
That's fine. So that's when my dad passed away. He was very young. I'll come back to that one if I may. Yeah. I think what I wanted to say was that we did most of our correspondence with Nev and Ant were by phone, because we lived in Cape Town, they lived in Joburg, and we had some wonderful conversations over birthdays and anniversaries mainly, and I was just talking to Grace about that, and our everlasting memories of Nev will be just laughing. We just always laughed and laughed and laughed on the phone, and he had such a great sense of humor, and I don't know what we laughed about, but we always found something to laugh about. Yeah. And even in his last phone call I made to him, which was on his birthday in December, he had worked out, we had a long chat, and then he told me all about why he thought that some pros could putt really well, and other pros were missing their putts, and he had worked it all out why it was. I just wish I could remember it so I could use it, but I can't. Yeah. Anyway, back to my dad. I think Nev and Ant provided so much support to us, our family, and kept us together, and we really appreciate that, Ant. Last bit.
Okay.
In Nev's memoirs, at the end, I think he wrote a little paragraph which I think sums up his attitude to life, and I'd like to read that to you. It was really such a revelation. He said, I quote, "The lesson I've learned is that there does not have to be a particular reason for anything. One is dealt certain cards and goes with them as they are turned over. No recriminations, no worries, one just gets on with life and adjusts accordingly. My philosophy, accept life as it is. In golfing terms, here we go. In golfing terms, play the ball as it lies and don't complain about how unlucky you are. Be thankful that modern medicine and surgery allow one to lead a normal life. There are so many people worse off." Well, Nev certainly got on with things and had a most fortunate life, and we will miss him greatly.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Mary. I'm the daughter-in-law of Ant and Nev, and married to Alan, as you probably guessed. Thank you all for being here today. I'm not really going to talk about him as a father-in-law, but he really was a wonderful father-in-law. But I'm here because I'm delivering a couple of messages from our daughters who couldn't be here today. So Nev was a very loving grandpa. He was very proud of his 4 granddaughters, Claire, Laura, Lara, and Natasha. And I'm passing on the messages from our 2 daughters, Claire and Laura, who are very far away at the moment. The first message is from Claire, who lives in the Marshall Islands. I don't know if you know where it is, but you can look it up afterwards. Despite living far away, Granny and Grandpa made many trips to see us in Australia, and we made regular trips to South Africa. We got to know them well. The day after Grandpa died last week, I went for a walk at the track and field stadium in Majuro, Marshall Islands. It was dark and only 2 of the floodlights were on, partially lighting the track. As I walked the loop, I looked up at the stars, and I had this really strong feeling that Grandpa was there with me, watching over me. I walked for an hour, crying my eyes out and looking at the night sky. On my second last lap, I saw a shooting star the only one I've seen since I've been in the Marshall Islands. And it felt like a sign from Grandpa telling me that everything would be all right. I'll always look for him in the stars. Grandpa, you were so loved and will be so missed. And then a message from Laura, who's in Brisbane, Australia, who also unfortunately couldn't make it. Grandpa was a wonderful grandparent, and he was always warm, positive, and interested in our lives. One of my best memories was visiting Kruger Park with Granny and Grandpa in 2015. I started calling him Nosy Nev on this holiday because he would stop and chat to every passing car, wanting to know what they'd seen. On more recent visits, I loved spending quality time with Nev and Ant in the flat. So on my last visit in 2024 with my fiancé Joe, Grandpa was determined to give us an adventure. So at 94, he took us on a scenic tour of Hillbrow. Not surprisingly, Joe said he'd never met anyone quite like Nev. During this visit, I enjoyed doing puzzles with Grandpa. Every time I got a piece right, he would exclaim, "Bon chien," which, for those of you who speak French, is good dog. And he'd give me a big pat on the back. He always had a great sense of humor and some iconic sayings. One of my best memories of Grandpa revolved around, you won't be surprised, food. He was a man of very simple tastes, which meant that new food experiences were always entertaining. We once took Ant and Nev to a steakhouse in Uluru, which is Ayers Rock in the middle of Australia, and Nev insisted on bringing a packet of gravy in case there wasn't any available. When Grandpa would tell stories about his life, he would always remember what foods he ate and when, which is quite surprising, really, isn't it? He had a way of telling stories and including little details that always entertained us. In recent years, he used the skill in writing down his life story, his memoirs. I feel so lucky that we can remember him in his own words. I will miss him very much, but feel so proud and lucky to be his granddaughter. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. I'm just reading out a little tribute from my daughter Lara, who's living in London for the last 4 years. So, over the last 4 years or so, I've been living in London. And so the majority of my interaction with Gramps has been either through email or messaging. I took the opportunity this week to look into some of the conversations we've had over the years. And boy, it's brought a smile to my face. As many of you know, Gramps was a complete bookworm, history buff, keen political enthusiast, and I think where we bonded most, an avid anti-English sports fan. My London life provided much context to our conversations, and I thought it would be nice to remember some of them today. What never failed to impress any of us was the detail with which Gramps could recall things long in the past. Dear Lar, good luck for your Edinburgh Marathon. Who knows, but you may even run past our old digs in Palmerston Place. I forgot the number, but it was on the second floor. If you happen to run along Princess Street toward Princess Street Station, the castle's on your left. At the end of Princess Street, the road becomes Shandwick Place and then Maitland Street. Palmerston Place is the second street on the right, and the landmark is St. Mary's Cathedral. Each morning, Granny and I would travel by bus along Princess Street with the castle on our right, and then turn at its Waverley station end into Northbridge and then Southbridge. Granny would get off at the bookstores called James Finn, and I would continue off to medical school. Dear La, what incredible news that you're presenting a talk at the House of Commons to the MPs. I'm completely bowled over that you will be appearing there, and I'm sure you'll knock them over. I can't wait for the details. Also, I'm glad that you survived India unscathed. It's a fascinating country with a fascinating history. I've read quite a few books on it, and it's always interested me. You probably remember that we went to Mumbai with Nikki, and Chrissy came too, and I presented a paper at Congress. Dear Allah, scroll down to the link to the Hunterton Museum. I really recommend you visit this museum at the Royal College of Surgeons. Grisly history of surgery and medicine with gruesome instruments and preserved specimens. It's very historical and provides lots of anatomical specimens of great interest. Even the lay public, I think, would find this interesting. I hope you don't get squeamish. Perhaps it's best you didn't follow the medicine route. Dear Allah, I see it's getting very cold your way. Yes, the rugby was unforgettable. Played at a great pace. Everyone says the 2 matches, that is Ireland and All Blacks and ours, were the greatest ever. Certainly the best that I've ever seen. Now for the England match. I definitely do not want to see England win. Dear Allah, I agree. Rory's worst shot was on the 13th when he hit his simple approach into the water. Then on the 15th, a magnificent 7-iron into the green, hooking the ball around the tree for a birdie. He's a genius, but also an idiot. Till next time, looking forward to the Open. Dear Allah, we are thinking of you today and your visit to Buckingham Palace. Incredibly exciting. And it coincides with the American elections, so you're in the midst of history. We can't wait to hear all about it. Lara speaking now. One of the best things that I ever did when I shook the King's hand in the middle of the giant gilded Buckingham Palace ballroom was I leaned forward and said, Your Majesty, my grandpa says hi. He was positively delighted. Gramps' response, Dear Allah, thanks for giving Charles our regards. Gramps and I emailed every week about our news and to discuss politics. Every football game, rugby or cricket match I watched. I sent him pictures, which he absolutely reveled in, always looking out for me on TV. The last time I saw him, Mary and I took him for lunch at the old Johannyan at St. John's. Really, it could not have been a better setting. After sending him the pictures we took, this was his response, the last message I have from him. Dear Allah, it was a great morning, and thank you so much for spending time with us. Hope your flight back was good and that all is okay at the London end. Lots of love, Gramps, with 3 big smiley faces. I feel so grateful that this is my last memory and message with Gramps, an incredible man who I admired so much. Gramps, I will always want to ask you questions, giggle together at our little inside jokes, talk to you about the state of the world, and listen to you telling me all about some historical event that you know every single detail about. You told me once that one day you will be history. Gramps, I can say with absolute certainty that you aren't history. You are a history maker, a true icon who has represented an era. You've shaped our world, our movements, our values. Thank you for being our grandpa, an ever-present memory of wisdom and love. And just like your fishing, Gramps, knew you when to wait, when to cast again, and how to enjoy the stillness. You understood that the joy was in the time spent, not just the catch. And most importantly, you leave us with calm waters and good stories. We love you.
Nev was a father. Nev was a son. But Nev was not a Holy Spirit. He was an uncle, he was a husband, he was a brother, and he was a grandpa. David, the perks of going last is that the family privilege is everyone said everything that there is to say, and there's nothing new I can contribute to who Gramps was. We've heard about his golfing days, his love for history, his love for reading. And one of my favorite stories about Grandpa was his attempt at becoming an archaeologist, which hasn't been referred to, so this is a piece of info I can provide that's new. Gran and Grandpa went, I think, to the Western Cape, and along their journey in the Karoo, Grandpa found a bone, and in his mind, this was a Charles Darwin level discovery of he was finding the key to evolution and unlocking the gap between Homo sapiens and Homo habilis, and this bone was going to explain history. And he very delicately brings it back in the car all the way to Joburg and takes it to the Wits Centre and has it analysed, and much to his disappointment, it came back as a springbuck vertebra. And so he was a lot, but unfortunately we can't add archaeologist to Grandpa's resume. David beat me to it, but I just wanted to read out a piece from Grandpa's book. He was also an author, although, yeah, I'm not sure how many people he wanted to read his book, but I guess that's what happens when you write a book, right? So there's an audience for it. So you have heard a little piece from David, but this is just a longer portion. What lessons does one learn after a lifetime of different experiences? After having undergone 3 cardiac catheterizations, including 5 stents initially, and 4 years later, a further 3, plus the removal of my bladder for cancer and having to wear a urostomy bag, I've experienced my fair share of surgery. The lesson I've learned is that there does not have to be a particular reason for anything. One is dealt certain cards and goes with them as they turn over. No recriminations, no worries. One just gets on with life and adjusts accordingly. When one thinks of people who have extreme disabilities, whether congenital or acquired, one can only marvel at how they face life and deal with their challenges. My philosophy: accept life as it is, in golfing terms. Play the ball as it lies and don't complain about how unlucky you are. Be thankful that modern medicine and surgery allow one to lead a normal life. There are so many people worse off. I am pleased to have written these reminiscences of our family life and at the same time to have recorded some of the past Welsh history. Papers and documents get lost or are discarded over time, and there was still much information that I had to exclude. Even if there are only 1 or 2 chapters of interest, at least it is a record of a lucky life. Married to Ant now for too many decades to count. I was doing really well. Okay, I'll try again.
You're doing really well.
At least it is a record of a lucky life. Married to Ant now for too many decades to count, with Alan and Nikki and their respective families giving us great happiness and joy. It has indeed been a fortunate life.
Thank you. I'm almost reluctant to continue after such a great crescendo of speeches. It's better than going to the movies. Quite magnificent. Thank you so much to David and Mary reading for Claire and Laura, and to John for Laura, and Tash, thank you. To those of us ordinary folk, listening to Neville's life makes me feel positively dull. But thank goodness we have those aspirations to become that magnificent. So we continue with our service. We have a few words of encouragement for those of us who are here today, and then we come to the high point of the service, the moment of commendation and committal. And if you are comfortable and able, I'll invite you to stand for that portion. But before we do that, we give some thought to ourselves as we remain behind. Grief changes us. A loss changes us. But more than anything else, love changes us. We do not move on from people whom we've lost. We don't get over it. Rather, we move forward with them, carrying within us what they have given to us, the habits of their hearts, their ways of seeing and thinking, the lessons we have learnt, strength we didn't know we had. In this life, a life continues. Neville's life continues, not as something alongside of us, not as a memory, a reminiscence, or a reflection, but as a living presence. It will be evident in the way we speak, the choices we make, in the ways in which we walk upon our broken earth. Above all, it will be shown in the way that we love. So now, if you are comfortable, I invite you please to stand. We now come to the moment of farewell. A human life has a beginning and an ending. This is the way of all living things. But between those 2 points lives a story, and the story never disappears. So today we release Neville with painful honesty and in time with peace. We give him back to the earth from which all life comes, to the great unfolding of nature of which we are a part. We give him back to the ongoing story of our universe. His body returns to the stardust from which he came. His presence remains in our lives as he has shaped us. His memory remains in the stories we will continue to tell. His love remains in our hearts as we have received it and commit ourselves to share it. And now it is time to let him go. Not into nothing, never into nothing, but into the vast belonging that holds all things. What has been lived cannot be unlived, and what has been loved cannot be unloved. Farewell, dear Neville. We bless you as you go to your rest. Please be seated. Our closing promises. Events like this are opportunities for us to improve ourselves, and they must never be missed. So we make a pledge in return to Neville as he has given his life to us. Neville, we pledge to you through diligent care to cultivate love through service to all those whom we will encounter. We will confront discrimination and prejudice with justice and respect. We will challenge greed and selfishness with generosity and charity. We will meet hypocrisy and pride with honesty and humility. We will stand up to abuse and destruction with nurturing and care. We will cultivate all that promotes the virtues of goodness with love. And we will embrace and inspire all whom we encounter to do the same, because you did. May we leave this place carrying what is best in Neville. May we be gentler because he lived, more courageous because he struggled, kinder because he cared, more honest because the truth matters in a world of lies. May we hold the fragility of life tenderly and all its gifts gratefully. So let us go from here to love more openly, to forgive more quickly, to laugh very much more often, and to live in such a way that when our day comes, we too will have left goodness behind us, that those who loved us will carry forward. Amen. And now, in great celebration, with poignant words, the great Benny King, 1961, Stand By Me. So please enjoy this. Thank you very much for joining us this morning for this commemoration. Our love to you, Antoinette, our compassion to you and your family. And there are refreshments available, so please come and help yourselves after you've enjoyed the music and taken a moment if you'd like to do so. Thank you.
When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't be afraid. Oh, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by. So darling, don't stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me. If the sky that we look on should tumble and fall on the mountain, should crumble on the sea.